What's up, travelers? It's Liz from Means of Travel, and I guess I'm talking to my fellow grounded travelers right now because we are all sitting at home in quarantine, hopefully. And I am here today with my friend Clarisa, who actually just got back to the US, which is where she's from, just like me, from Argentina. She was working there. I'll let her talk about it more, but specifically she was working in Buenos Aires. But ever since the travel restrictions have been going into place, she had to come home. So I thought we would take a moment today to interview her for this channel and talk about her experience, what it was like with the outbreak happening when she was in Buenos Aires and her trip home very urgently about a week ago, I think.
Exactly a week ago.
Yes, yeah, exactly a week ago. So I'll turn it over to Clarisa right now. So why don't you tell us where exactly you are currently?
Of course. Well, first of all, hola to everyone on the channel. It's so exciting to be able to spend some time chatting with Liz and with all of you. And so, as Liz mentioned, I am currently grounded here in Chicago. I fortunately did keep my apartment with it in the midst of the move, so I was able to just move right back in.
That's great. And so you were not gone for too long, but you had been going back and forth to Argentina for quite some time, right? Before what was
Yeah.
supposed to be a 6-month move, is that right?
So I'll give you my long story short is, so I work for an international law firm and we are going through a restructuring at the moment. So I've been covering Latin America. So over the past year, I've had a couple trips to Buenos Aires, as well as some of our other offices in Latin America. So the idea was, as we move more through implementation, our Latin America COO lived in Buenos Aires. So they're like, okay, you go live in Buenos Aires to, let's say, like 9 months to a year, tracking like November timeframe. That will give you an opportunity to work closely with the COO, and also you'll be closer to all of the offices instead of going Chicago, Miami, down.
Right.
I was like, I was best friends at the Miami airport. So that was the plan. I arrived fully excited to embrace my Argentina life. I think it was February 20th. So almost exactly to the day of a month, I was back in Chicago.
Woof.
Exactly. Very sad.
But you, just so everyone knows, Clarisa feels really connected to Latin America generally. Tell me if I'm misspeaking, but
No, you're spot on.
Yeah, I mean, you've been so excited about this move for a long time now and really was itching to do it. So I think for you, it's just extra sad that this opportunity hopefully is just temporarily postponed.
Exactly. And I think to embody that, I was talking to my old boss in Chicago the other day, and he's like, oh, well, how do you feel about things? I go, well, to be honest, I was supposed to be living my best life in Argentina, and now I'm in quarantine.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So where exactly did you live? We had mentioned Buenos Aires, but where in Buenos Aires were you?
Yeah, so to give some perspective, the office is located in Puerto Madero, which is like the newer port side of the city, if you will.
Beautiful area.
Beautiful. I lived about a 15-minute walk from there in a neighborhood called Retiro. So it's kind of close to the city center, and in between, if you will, the main part of the city and Puerto Madero. So the plan was to be there for a month, which I was. And then I was going to move up to the Recoleta, which for those of you who have been to Buenos Aires, Recoleta is just such a phenomenal part of the city. For me, it's the perfect blend of like history, culture, restaurants, but not too busy. It has more of an old world flair. A lot of people our age, without stereotyping, probably go more in the Palermo area. I'm an old soul, so I was like, well, I'll just hang out in Recoleta. So that's where I was looking for apartments. That's where I was planning to move. But then I came back.
Yeah. So I have been to Buenos Aires as well in the past, and I know that I'm kind of nodding along, but let me just echo what Clarisa is saying. And the Recoleta neighborhood is absolutely stunning. And And me and Derek were really hoping to go visit you during this.
Well, I'm putting it in the universe. We will be back.
Yes.
You can come visit in the fall, there's spring, all things full steam ahead.
I love the good travel vibes. So let's talk about, obviously right now. So let me say the date today is March 29th, Sunday. And we, both Clarissa and I, are in Chicago. And so we are in a shelter in place state, basically in quarantine. I'd like to say lockdown light, a little bit. But tell me a little bit about what it was like right before you left Argentina a week ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So I preface all of this by saying, like, I'm not a medical expert. I'm not 100% sure on all of these facts, but as I recall them, I would say, holistically speaking, I've been very impressed with the response that Argentina has taken to the whole COVID-19 pandemic, if you will. Some of the data points you can think of are, I believe Argentina got their first case, let's say March 3rd. And here I actually got another date just to be sure I don't misspeak. So by March 16th, they had suspended all of the classes, and they had put a ban on any major large gatherings. So let's say football games, things like that.
And by classes, you just mean like schools?
Yeah, sorry. So like universities, schools, things like that. So again, March 3rd was the first case. By March 16th, they had already put a lockdown on like major things.
That's rapid compared to a lot of other countries.
Super rapid. And actually before that, so this happened, let's say like on a Tuesday. Yes, because so we got our case, and it was actually interesting because all the cases were coming from abroad, as is what happens in most countries in this pandemic. But Buenos Aires, or Argentina in particular, has a very strong connection with both Italy and Spain. So in the beginning, it was fascinating because everyone's like, can we just shut down the planes to Italy and to Spain? And I remember I actually looked it up, and they have 15 flights a day from Buenos Aires to Italy.
Wow.
Which to me, I was like, that's a shuttle bus between New York and Chicago, 15 flights a day. And so there was this, like, more of a candid, like, joke at the time. We're like, okay, well, it's not like the Buenos Aires or Argentina economy is booming, neither is Italy. So like, this is purely just people having fun. So we're like, oh, why don't we just shut it down and we can contain this a little bit?
Right.
Well, like 2 days later, they just fully shut everything down. So before they closed the classes, they initially closed the borders with Italy and the United States and China. So like right from the get-go, the U.S. was part of the list of countries that was considered high risk. So it was fascinating because even though I'm based in Latin America now, I'm still obviously closely connected to our United States business unit. So then I actually had a flight to come home, and my friend was supposed to come visit for Miami for the weekend. And so I had got wind that they were going to put a block against the United States. So I called my friend Mary, and I was like, you really need to check American Airlines because I'm afraid if you come down here, you're not going to be able to get home. So this was a Wednesday. And so she called American Airlines. They confirmed, they're like, this is the last day that Argentina is accepting Americans. There is going to be no flights home. So about 2 hours before her flight, she canceled the whole thing. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I should maybe consider aborting mission or not. I don't know what to do. But by the time I got around to like checking on my ticket, I couldn't even get a hold of anyone from American. And so this was like Wednesday. Now we get to Friday. I had a great conversation with the Latin America COO. I will say the firm was amazing in taking care of me. And then,
that's good.
And yeah, that gave me a ton of comfort. And we can talk more about that too. But so then on Friday, I was kind of like, well, I guess I'm sort of staying here because I still have my ticket, but I can't get a hold of anyone. And so we'll see what happens. And then on Saturday, it was super surreal. And I was actually texting with Derek because in your mind, you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to be here for this. And it's fine because I was going to be here for a year anyways, no big deal. But when you get a notification that your flight has been canceled and it says like no other flights available, I was in the grocery store buying food. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like really doing this. And I'm like, this is fine. We're okay. So then that was, again, Saturday. So you figure between Wednesday and Saturday, Argentina had completely shut down everything.
Right.
And it wasn't like noticed. Like, I know when you and Derek were in Amsterdam, it was like, okay, calling all Americans, come home.
Yeah, they gave us, 2 days.
Yeah, Argentina just like hard pass shut it down.
Wow.
And then where I was saying it was fascinating because I was getting texts from my friends that said, oh, well, however you feel about what's happening politically, they're like, well, at least the United States was smart enough to keep their borders open to Latin America. And I'm like, not anyone's fault. It's just, that's how our viewpoint is. And I was like, well, what's funny is Latin America shut their borders to the US.
Right.
So sure, legally I can come back, but I'm like, the United States actually has no say in this because Argentina said no flights and I'm on Argentine soil.
Right.
So that was super fascinating. And then I was on several calls with our firm, and our travel team did an excellent job of screening for those travelers that were in Europe or in China. And I remember being on this call with leadership and they're like, oh, we were just so impressed. We were able to get everyone home. And I didn't want to burst of positivity, but afterwards I called them and I was like, I agree. You guys handled this amazing, but you did also take the lens of screening for who we were blocking. And I'm like, you left me in Latin America.
Yeah.
So that's when the firm was like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry. So they were trying to find another way for me to come home. So it was super nice to have the support of the travel team at work, like digging into that behind. So in the
that's
meantime,
such a great resource.
Such a great resource. So in the meantime, now we get to, so that's all like Saturday, right? So Monday, it's crazy because every day was like just so much moving.
Yeah.
So then we get to Monday, and then I sat down with our Latin America COO again. He became like my dad.
Oh.
And so again, they were wonderful. They set me up with private health insurance, which is great. And we can talk more about the health system there too. But
yeah,
again,
I was going to ask you about that.
For sure. But some steps that I took like personally. So I was like, well, if I'm going to be here, I signed up for private health insurance, and I signed up with the US Embassy. And so that's something I highly suggest if anyone is going to be anywhere for a somewhat extended period of time, just very much stay connected with the US Embassy. I was very impressed with how quickly they sent out alerts, how full disclosure they were. I'm still getting alerts. I think it's interesting to see how they're managing the situation. But so on Monday, I was like, okay, I feel good. My family's taken care of in the United States. I'm going to be here. I went to work on Monday. So this whole time we were all going to work, but schools had been closed. Again, major functions, football games, things like that. And then by Monday evening, I got an email that was like, okay, mandated everybody work from home. And so I'm like, all right, Argentina, now we're working from home.
Yeah.
So
and as somebody who's brand new to the country, that's got to feel isolating.
It was a little, it's just like, at that point, I was trying to be super adaptable.
Yeah.
But of course, like I was in an apartment where it was a temporary apartment anyways. So I had done my best to make it feel like home. But you're in a, new country, new neighborhood. I'm not at home with anybody else, but I remember I kept telling myself, well, at least I can still go out and like go for a walk or a run, right? I'm not locked down in the house. Like I can do this. I can do this for sure.
Right.
So then I had like gotten some provisions, stocked up the house, like nothing crazy, but again, we can talk about all the dynamics in Argentina anyways, but I was like, we'll just have some basics. So then by Thursday, I had gone out and gotten like some more food and things. And then, so Thursday night, the government decided to go full lockdown. So going back to the stats, at this point, there is only 50, here, let's see. No, they had, so when they closed classes, like school and things, there was 56 cases. And then March 20th, they had 128 cases, 3 deaths, and they shut down the whole country.
It escalated so quickly there too.
So quickly. So I remember talking to the Latin America COO at, let's say, 6:30, and he's
Hmm.
like, okay, todo bien. I'm like, yes, see, don't worry, we're good. By 10:30 that same night, I had this hurry up offense of like trying to find a ticket, trying to get back home. I had made the decision that I was going to go ahead and get out because the travel team was able to find a flight via Brazil. So
Hmm.
actually interesting, I had two flights. It was either Buenos Aires, Panama City in Panama home, or Buenos Aires, Sao Paulo home. I opted for Sao Paulo just because we have an office in Sao
Mm.
Paulo. So I was like, if I'm going to get stuck somewhere, I was really leveraging the network of the firm on this.
Yeah.
And fascinating that I did that because so I also ended up talking to our global COO like late Thursday night. And so again, I give the firm so much credit for taking care of me.
Wow.
So also fascinating, we apparently have this global security for the team for the firm. So
Right.
then I'm like FaceTiming with this global security individual. And so the firm was like tracking me to come home just in case I did get stuck. So I bring that up because then Friday morning, so I pull an all-nighter. I slept 2 hours, packed my whole life because I was supposed to be there for a year,
Oh.
packed my whole life in 10 hours. So then I pack. And so now it's Friday morning. And I had got a text message from our global security and they were like, can you please call? Everyone's closing their borders. We want to be sure things are okay. So I'm talking to the travel team and they're like, Brazil's good. Panama actually shut their border. So like super glad I didn't pick that flight because again,
Jeez.
the Latin America strategy is just like, it's closed. Everything's canceled. Not like
Right.
you have 24 hours, blah, blah, blah. So then I'm like still putting things in the suitcase. They're like checking Brazil, making sure the flights. And I'm like, please don't get me stuck in Brazil. I'll have a meltdown. So then now I finally bring all my luggage downstairs. We had to call a taxi driver in advance because Argentina is super strict. I like how you call it lockdown light.
Yeah.
It is not happening there. You literally can only leave if you are getting food or going to the pharmacy. And if you have a pet, you can like let it out on your same block, but
I
they
mean,
are,
technically, I guess it's kind of like that here, but people are definitely going for runs and stuff.
yeah,
So,
yeah, and that's definitely, they're throwing people in jail.
yeah.
So I've been keeping up with the news. They've already like detained or convicted. I'm not quite sure what you would call it, like
Yeah.
1,400 people, and it's
Holy
been a week.
moly.
Yeah, so that's what I said. Like it's like here, but
It's
no, it's
not
actually
lockdown
not.
light by any
Not
means.
at all. It's like lockdown. So for that, it was a big thing because we didn't know if we were going to be able to find a taxi who could come get me. So Buenos Aires HR was like trying to get the taxi. So again, I preface this like it's a miracle that I'm here and only by the network that I had like a whole team supporting me to get me back.
Yeah.
Because that would have been way a lot for one person to handle. So they got me like this special taxi that was authorized to come get me. I had to wait inside my apartment building. The police were there. The taxi driver like pointed, like, look, clearly she's American. So I come out with all my stuff. We load up the taxi. They checked my passport. They checked to be sure that I had a plane ticket.
Wow.
So Argentina at that time was very much like, you can leave, but nobody can come in, and residents could come in. So now I'm like on my way to the airport. Another fact about Argentina was kind of getting into people who were coming and going. I was particularly impressed because they had set up a special like arrangement with Aerolíneas Argentinas, which
Hmm.
is their main airline. So they were repatriating their citizens from abroad. So they're like, okay, we're trying to bring all of the Argentines home. And again, if I'm honest, I felt like a little bit like I got left in Latin America. And I got articles that said, if you're a US citizen stuck abroad, we're not coming to help you. And I was like, no. So just very impressed that they like shut down everything, but
Yeah.
we're allowing people to leave and allowing people to come back. So now I bring that up because in the past week, Argentina has gone full stop on everything. So even Argentine citizens cannot come in. They have just like completely shut the country down. I'm still getting, like I said, the alerts from the U.S. Embassy. So they are now partnering with an airline called Eastern
Okay.
to try to get American citizens out of the country. So it's kind of crazy. The email today was like, there's one flight from, so basically, if you're anywhere in Argentina, you
Yep.
have to find a way to get to Buenos Aires.
And it's like
You
a
have to,
rescue flight, basically.
it's not full blown like rescue yet. They just have an agreement with the commercial airline to bring them home, but it's, you
Okay.
have to pay for it yourself as an American, all of that. But they were like, this is probably your last shot out because they had to make an agreement with the government that they were allowed to take this flight. And so again, it's all of Argentina. You have to figure out a way how to get to the capital. And that's particularly challenging because let's say if you're in Cordoba or Mendoza, there's no domestic flights. Like Argentina is full stop. So if you're in Tierra del Fuego, I have no idea how you're going to get to Buenos Aires, but
Right.
they're working with Americans like, send us your information. We can write you a letter. If you get stopped by the police, this way, hopefully they continue to let you through. There's all of these rules and regulations about traveling within Argentina. But so if you get to Buenos Aires and you get a seat on this plane, then they will bring you to Miami. And then you have to figure out how to get wherever you're going in the US from Miami.
Right.
But the email today said, like, this is basically your last shot because everything else is completely shut down. So,
And thankfully,
uh,
as of today, at least, the domestic flights here in the States have not shut down and they're actually pretty empty. So most
yeah,
likely if somebody can get themselves to Miami, they can get themselves to wherever their home is at this point.
at this point, yes. So back to my saga.
Yeah.
Um, so now I arrive at the Argentina airport, and it was pretty busy, but definitely less than normal because again, people are only leaving. So I flew a Brazilian airline called Go from Buenos Aires to Sao Paulo. They were super wonderful, didn't even charge me extra for my luggage, and I had a lot. So that part of the airport felt normal. And then you go through security and whatnot. And then when you get past security, it was completely empty in terms of like life in the airport. So there were people, you couldn't buy water, you couldn't buy food, everything was just completely shut down. All the duty free shops, the Havana coffee shop, I couldn't even buy alfajores. I was really sad. Here's
Oh
me, I'm like, well, I'll just buy some, thinking it's more, I'll just
no.
buy
Yeah.
some cookies in the airport to bring back. Like, this is a global pandemic. There are no cookies in the airport to buy. But it was very surreal to just see, I've never seen an airport shut down.
Right. And that's really different than the experience that we had in Amsterdam a week earlier. Like the
Yes.
airport, everything was open. So I can imagine it would feel like you're living in some sort of other universe.
Well, and the other factors you have, which I actually think it was fascinating to be down in Argentina for this, is like issues like water. They apparently you can drink their water, but most people don't. So sure, worst case scenario in the United States, you can drink out of the drinking fountain. We're all reusable with
Right.
our water bottles. But down there, there's a real concern of like, if you don't have bottled water, you could be at risk for a whole other thing. So yeah, so there was one coffee shop open in the airport. So I actually filled up my water bottle and I was like, here we go, Argentine water, we're doing this.
Right
And
before a massive journey.
yes, and I was at the airport
Brave.
4 hours early because I had no idea what was going to happen. So then I found the coffee shop, so I was able to get a sandwich, and then I bought some agua con gas. I was like, well, at least we have the little bubbles. So
Yeah.
I ended up not drinking Argentine water, but I was going to.
And just so everyone knows, agua con gas is like sparkling water.
Yes, exactly. So then I got on the plane. And so I went to Sao Paulo, and in full disclosure, I was a little bit concerned because the guy behind me was definitely like coughing and sneezing. And I was like, do you have corona? Why are you on the plane right now? But
And this
I
is
was
your flight to Brazil?
to Brazil, right? But I had my like hand sanitizer, I had a mask, I had gloves, I even had the little like multi-purpose wipes, the Latin America version brand. So
How
then
long was that flight?
almost 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was like, literally, I was like, I hope this seat is just blocking all of the germs behind me. He was very kind, like very chivalrous. He even brought down my luggage. I was like, don't touch my luggage. I like wiped it down. I was like, we just, but I just wiped it all down. I was like, don't be offended. But then it was super fascinating because when I got to Brazil, I was like, do you guys know about coronavirus? Like the airport was just popping, like nothing was even going on. And so there's certain things you can, people have an opinion about how Brazil is managing things. But one of the reasons why they're allowing flights is because they are being more open in their approach. But I will be honest that I was super stressed out I had a 3-hour layover. And I think every 15 minutes, so they update their boards like, let's say an hour before the plane goes. So I'm just seeing like Chicago, but I have no idea where the gate is, no idea where anything is. And every 15 minutes, I was like, please don't be canceled. Like, is it still going? And I would like ask people, I'm like, is the flight still good? And they're like, oh, just go to the board. So just imagine like anxiously trying to dodge people because they're not practicing the best, like, spatial distance, personal hygiene, things like that, because they're just like, hey, we're hanging out. So in one respect, it was nice because you could buy food and things were open and you could be shopping. But at the other time, I was like, don't you guys know that there's a pandemic?
I mean, it sounds like it's night and day. Like one airport
100%
completely
night and
different
day.
than the other.
Yes, but I will say from a travel perspective is I was fortunate enough to be able to go to the lounge, which was weird because I'm like, I'm in this like escape mission, but now I get the luxury of being in an airport lounge. But what was fascinating to see is they really did a great job in taking precautions.
Yeah.
And normally your buffet is open, but they had blocked it all off and you could go up and order. So you still had a wide menu, but they would bring you your apple or bring you your food or whatnot. So then this way people weren't circulating. And then same thing for the drinks. So I was very impressed by that.
Oh, that's good. And what was your flight like home and then back through customs like?
So that was another full disclosure. I was able to fly business class back,
Beautiful.
Beautiful, but again, felt a little surreal because they even made an announcement. They're like, I'm sorry. Oh, so I will say I flew United home. So Gold to Brazil and then United back home. And I actually felt so much better being on an American airline coming home because I thought the probability of it being canceled was less.
Right.
I'm like, a United plane isn't going to live in Brazil for forever.
Right. Their crew needs to get back to their houses. Yeah.
So that's the only reason why I like prefaced an American airline, like nothing against LATAM. But so it was fascinating because they made an announcement that there were going to be no like pillows and blankets and stuff due to precautions with the virus and like all of these things. And then you get into business class and there was 2 pillows and 2 blankets. And I was like, this is a little bit, I don't say like discrimination, but there's definitely a delineation. So I will say my flight was great, right? You had your meal and I like wiped everything down and I was very cautious about things, but the crew was lovely. They were wonderful. I normally fly American. I may actually consider flying United maybe next time. I was just very, very impressed, one, in their willingness to still fly, where, like I said, other airlines completely canceled, and just their commitment to getting Americans home and to being precautious and taking the right steps. So slept like a dream because remember I hadn't slept. And then when I arrived in O'Hare, I was really lucky. It was like 7 a.m. So I have global entry. So I was able to just, go through the machine. There wasn't a line really. They asked me questions because I had like so much luggage.
Yeah. With your global entry experience, did they ask you any additional questions than usual?
No, they just asked more like why I was Latin American and like what my plans were and what I was doing. I think they were like, why are you coming back with 10,000 bags of luggage? And I basically said, well, I was living down there and then I aborted mission. And then the guy was like, I would have aborted mission too. Welcome home. Handed me the thing. And I was like, oh, Chicago. And you get to see all the Chicago flags and people have the hats. So it was good. I will say the one thing, not her fault, but I did not get the best taxi. service,
Mhm.
which I thought was interesting. I presume she was probably just afraid. I'm like, here's this girl who's getting off the plane. She has a mask on, but like didn't say much to me, didn't help with my luggage. And I'm like, everyone responds to this differently. I'm just here to be kind and extend grace. Like, sure, I can haul my own luggage. It's fine. But then I found it super fascinating because she asked if I had cash. And I was like, I mean, I have pesos, but I fortunately had a little bit of cash. And then I asked, I was like, well, is your credit card machine not working? Because I was planning to just use my credit card. And then she had said that she needed cash because the banks were closed and different things like that. And then that's when I'm like, I've been in the United States for 5 minutes. I have no idea what's going on here. So fortunately, I did happen to have $50 to be able to pay for the taxi
Yeah.
home. But that was when I was like, okay, what is going on in the United
Yeah. What did I
States?
miss?
Yeah. And so I mean, I haven't been in transportation since then, but that was just very interesting and kind of like an eerie feeling of the first interaction you get to the US is they're like, we can't get cash out. And I was like, well, maybe I should keep my cash. But
Yeah, that's the first I've heard of something like that.
mm-hmm.
To my knowledge, all the banks are still open. I believe they're considered essential businesses. So,
So again, I was like, you know what? Everyone responds to this differently. I have no
yeah.
idea what your personal circumstances. So I, gave her some cash and I've been in lockdown ever since.
Yeah, that's the last person you've seen.
Exactly.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I know that was a lot. If you have any questions, I can
I mean,
give more information.
that's such a story. It's a story you're going to be probably reliving for a lifetime. Um, so I guess going back to just the time right before you left in Argentina, how did you feel other people that you interacted with, other citizens of Buenos Aires, were reacting themselves, like on a day-to-day level? How are citizens coping with it?
Yeah, so that was actually fascinating too, because I will say, if I'm honest, I was probably the one most freaking out. And I'm actually super pragmatic and practical about these things. And I was only freaking out because the Americans were freaking out.
Yeah.
So I would get messages from my friends that were like sending me the big red alert, and it said, "Can you please come home? They've upgraded the travel, guidelines." And I was like, "Yeah, it says no travel. Why would I get on a plane now?" And so just being bombarded with the American news, I felt like a lot of fear was being like spread, if you will. So I would get really stressed. I would even get like knots in my stomach when I would look at the Chicago Times or just any news across from America. And then my friends would send me pictures of how the grocery stores were like empty and how people were hoarding. And it was very, very, I remember getting like upset at one point because here I am in Argentina. It's a lot more fact-based. Like
Mm-hmm.
fear isn't being perpetuated in by the media or in the news. It's also a different environment where like their country is in turmoil all the time. And
Yeah.
so for them, they were like, honestly, this is fine. They go, we go through a crisis every 4 years. And I was just like,
Which is
what?
so sad, but yeah.
Which is so sad, but it completely changes the way they approach a situation. No one was hoarding. Everyone was calm. Everything was like super regulated. There was just like processes and people were just following the rules and like just going about their daily life. So it was such a weird tension to be in, to be like all my Americans freaking out, but then all the Argentinos like, this is fine. And then the other part that was really sad, and I was like, well, okay, I get that. Here's me. I'm like trying to escalate the risk. I get that it's fine now, but I have no idea like how things escalate in Argentina. Like, what's the word? They also protest a lot. I'm like, are people going to be rioting, burning things in the street? Like, I don't know. And they're like, well, it has to get like really, really bad for it to escalate to that. They're like, and really, mostly, you're going to be fine the whole time because you have the US dollar. They said, so you'll be able to afford things. They go, worst case scenario, we'll have massive inflation. The peso will be worth nothing. We won't be able to buy food. Only really expensive things will be left. And they're like, but you're going to be fine because you have the US dollar. And so that's like this whole other tension that you're
Which,
just like,
because they've been through that before, it feels manageable. But to hear that as something that could happen to an American citizen who hasn't experienced that, I'm sure it would feel frightening, and it would
hmm.
encourage shock buying and panic.
Yeah, but I was like, and then here's me. I'm like, never miss an opportunity to, social impact. So I was buying the more expensive food in the market
Mm-hmm.
because, so let's say a can of tuna,
Yep.
$4 or $5. Sure, that's a lot of money, but I was like trying to leave the less expensive things for like things that the Argentines could buy. So it's just super interesting, their different approach. I will say their grocery stores are interesting because they have a lot of different tienditas, meaning like you go to the bakery, you go to the vegetable place, you go to, get your meat somewhere. It's not like
Right.
a ton of supermarkets. So if you would go into the smaller places, they were fully stocked. So then that gives you so much comfort because you're like, there's based on what I'm hearing from America, I'm like, there's toilet paper here, there's cleaning supplies, there's food, no one's freaking out. I'm like, I can do this. At one point, it was a Sunday, I had gone shopping and I literally almost wanted to cry because the grocery stores had so much supplies in them. And I had just talked to my friend, the one who lives in Miami, and she's actually pregnant. And she's
Mm-hmm.
like, I can't buy anything because people are hoarding. And I was like, who would have thought that there's a situation where I'm like, here, let me send you a box of stuff from
Right.
Latin America, because it was just like busting off the shelves and I'm getting pictures of nothing at home. And so I was like I said, most of my emotional distress was coming from the United States.
Right.
But going back to how Argentina was managing it, it did get to the point. So, I did go to a supermarket, and that was actually fascinating because I have a good symbiotic relationship with Argentina in terms of food. So a lot of things that I personally eat, maybe because I'm Mexican, so like beans, or because I'm American, oatmeal, like staples like that,
Yep.
Argentines don't really eat. So I would go through the store. I'm like, oh, there's a ton of oatmeal, there's tons of beans, but like and then they had milk, they had bread, they had yogurt, they had everything. The only thing that was, I'm not even joking, I had a laugh, completely wiped out was the steak section. Like they had
So
chicken.
Argentina.
So Argentina. I'm like, wait, this whole grocery store, like no one has panicked except for the steak section. Like it didn't even make sense because there was ham, there was chicken breast, chicken legs, like sausage, like seafood, salmon. There was not a single
That's
piece of
amazing.
red meat. It was fantastic. And then the pasta, all of the pasta was basically gone. And then
Mm.
the things like the tomato sauce and things like that, and then randomly like cans of tuna, which I think would probably be a normal thing for people to hoard. But I was like, okay, I see you, Argentina. I was like, well, I love red meat. I don't need to fight you for your red meat. I can eat some other stuff. And pasta, I don't like pasta. So I'm over here buying the rice and they're buying the
Whoa.
pasta. So I was like, we're going to be fine in
Yeah.
this whole pandemic because we eat like different stuff minus the steak. And I'm like, and I'll let you keep that. But then that was super funny because you see like the younger generations in the grocery store, and they're like taking all these videos like, oh my gosh, the shelves are empty. And I wanted to be like, no, those are fake empty. The United States is really empty. Like you have one shelf that's empty. We have like stores apparently, based on what I was getting.
Yeah.
So that was the supermarket experience. And then I will say, so once they completely shut all the borders, then they started really regulating how people were shopping. So based on the square footage of the store, you were only allowed to have so many people in.
Mm.
So they'd say like, okay, 8 shoppers at a time, which helps prevent hoarding. One, I don't think they were doing it for the hoarding, but I was just very impressed. Like, oh, we're doing this social distance, and they had like lines where you could stand and things. So that was interesting. And then
And did you
even,
go to the store while they were doing that?
mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I went because I had to go pretty frequently for water. That was
Mm.
the one thing that I was worried about. I'm like, I can survive on, anything else. What was nice is I drink a lot of milk, like actual
Mhm.
dairy milk, and they pasteurize it differently. So
Hmm.
it doesn't have to be refrigerated. So I was like, worst case scenario, I'm going to buy 20 gallons of these milk that can sit out on the counter and I'll just drink milk. Again, we're just talking like Armageddon. I'm like, I can just survive off milk. It's fine. And I don't even have to keep it in the fridge. But I did have to go frequently for water. And because I don't have a car, it was only what you could carry. So it was like a 650-liter like jug.
Yeah.
So I would buy like one or two at a time. So I was going to the store frequently for water. And then you realize like, well, most Americans drink a ton of water comparatively speaking. And that was one thing I was like, I didn't realize how much the firm subsidized my water just by me being at the office. But when I was home all day, I was like, I drink so much water. So that was the only part where I was kind of concerned. But yeah, so then I was like in the store with the new rules, if you will.
Right.
They also did the same in the pharmacy. So there would be like a line outside and they would space out the line outside and let people in as people were coming out. And then even again, bring Nespresso back up. I was like, well, if I'm going to be here, and then who knows what's going to happen with the supply chain of coffee and this and that. So I literally went to Nespresso in Argentina. I bought 2 months supply of like the capsules. But
That's amazing. By the way, those are expensive.
super expensive.
Yeah. I think they're
I'm
over
like,
$1 per capsule.
yes. And the worst part is then I got back to the States and the Nespresso here is closed. And so I was like, now I'm like have no coffee here. But I bring up Nespresso because I was very fascinated with how they were managing. Again, they had so many people in the store, the line outside,
Yeah.
but you would go in, they had hand sanitizer. So everyone would like hit it with their elbow. So you'd
Hmm.
hit the hand sanitizer, go up. They had the line where you could only get so close to the people. They would grab your coffee, hand it to you. And then on the way out, you hit this hand sanitizer again. So, I mean, the whole time I was just like, let's go, Argentina.
Yeah,
So
it sounds like
impressed.
everybody kind of has their routine.
Yeah. And like, we can have a whole other conversation, which we won't, because then it may get like deemed political about, well, you have a very socialist government that's arguably a
Yeah.
dictator. There are news articles going now, like, is the government overreaching? But notwithstanding all those from a process standpoint, you knew the rules, people were following them. I felt like that helped take the panic out of it. It was just like, these are the facts and this is what we're doing. They were very forthcoming, like, we may consider shutting down the country for 10 days. We're having a meeting at noon on Sunday about it. So I just felt like the whole time, drastic things, dramatic things, crazy actions, if you will, were happening.
Yeah.
But I felt like it all felt very systematic and I felt like I had information as it was happening. So again, if you would have asked the day I left, I felt like pretty calm, all things considered. I wasn't freaking out. I felt safe. There was even a part of me that was like, should I just stay? I really like it here. And I was like, no, you just don't
I
know.
gave you a 50-50 on whether you were going to stay. I thought you
Yeah.
would.
I would say if it was just with consideration for me, I would have stayed. Granted, we have no idea how this is going to develop, but with the
Right.
information that I had, like I said, I felt secure. But I was like, I can problem solve for almost anything except for the fact where something happens to my parents, the
Hmm.
borders are closed, and I can't get home. And I was like, that's the only thing I probably wouldn't be able to figure of myself or problem solve my way out of. And in the like 1% chance that happens, I was like, I'm going to want to be on American soil for that. So that was really, because it really is to get caught up in all the drama. And I'm like, okay, let's go with the facts and what's the worst case thing that is the ultimate risk that you can't solve for, or if you can solve for it, make your decision on that. And so
Hmm.
that's really why I decided to come home. But still, and then like Argentina, they're building 8 hospitals. I think they're up to, let's say, 700 cases or so. They're going to extend their country quarantine. It was supposed to go to the 31st. They're now going to extend it to April 12th. So after Easter, they may push it to the end of the month in May. So I've just been continually impressed by how they've been managing it. Again, if you're in favor of the government or things like that, they are taking a very hard approach to it. But I will say the downside of that is, well, one, they absolutely have to because they don't have the option of like misstepping. Because
Mhm.
what's happening in the United States, if this was happening in Argentina, they would just be decimated. So they really have to get it right. But the other thing that was interesting that we don't hear so much here in the States is, um, because as I mentioned, Argentina has a different economy. The gig economy is very, very prevalent there.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so or just, getting a daily paycheck is
Mhm.
a very real thing for most of the population. So shutting it down has huge economic ramifications. So their
And a
government,
daily paycheck is literally the most foreign thing to most people, I
yeah.
feel, in the US.
And so with that, they were when this all started coming up, it was fascinating because there was some comments around how coronavirus was like a rich people disease because in that type of economy, right, they're like all the people who can travel got the disease and they brought it back. And all the people who have money can shelter in place, can stay at home, can buy soap and wash their hands, can have hand sanitizer, and can shelter in place. They're like, for the majority of the population, they're like, we don't have fresh water, we don't have any of that, and we don't have a very safe place where we can be 6 feet away from someone else. So it's super, super a privilege that we're all stuck in our houses right now. And there's like a lot of, particularly like the outskirts of the city and things, that's something that their government really, really has to consider. And they've
I
been
would
work.
argue that we have that in the US too.
Oh,
Um,
for sure,
yeah.
for sure. Um, but I guess I mean more of like us who have the luxury of traveling.
Right.
Yeah, we get to like stay at home and do our workout videos and things like that. But
Right.
yeah, it is very much something that we feel, with our impoverished population as well. So, but it's been interesting because they've had a lot of their churches have stepped up, and the government has had conversations with the churches in some of those areas. So it's interesting to see the
That's
the
cool.
partnerships between the two, and they're like using the churches for places where people can stay, or to treat people, and so that's sort of how they're trying to reach the impoverished or like the at need population. But again, I don't think the Argentine government is in a situation where like we have our $2 trillion stimulus. They were already about to default with the IMF. So it'll be super interesting to see how they continue to manage through all of this. But I think in terms of taking actions to try to contain and stop the spread of the disease, that's been very, very impressive.
Can you give us a kind of a high level overview of what the healthcare system is like there and what your coverage would have been like if you had stayed?
Yeah, so I can't speak like very articulately about this, but I will say in my conversations with my coworkers of like, should I stay, should I go? And some of my coworkers are from other Latin American countries. They just reside in Buenos Aires.
Okay.
It is commonly viewed as they have one of the better health systems in Latin America. So compared to like Mexico, I did find an article that says they have 5 beds and 4 doctors for 1,000 inhabitants. So I guess most countries in the region average around 2.2.
Hmm.
So on the whole, they are considered better.
A little more
Um,
well equipped, it
a
sounds.
little more well equipped, right? But I would think still probably below the United States,
Hmm.
which is why work advocated me more to have the private health insurance. I didn't really. I was candidly making a gamble, like, oh, I won't need it.
Hmm.
um, but we did do like an initial check of like some of the medications that we can get here. Are they available there? So that was good. So like I said, I felt in a pretty good place with my coverage, provided the fact that I was never intending to use it.
Right.
But I think one thing, regardless of what country you're in or how good your infrastructure is, when your healthcare system's over capacity, I think you're over capacity.
Right.
So I was kind of like, you could have the best health system in the world. If you're maxed, you're maxed. So hopefully it doesn't get to that point, but we could be in a situation where all countries experience something similar. So
Is Argentina the place where like everybody kind of naturally has health insurance who pays taxes to the government?
I think they do. Again, they tend to be a little bit more socialist.
Mhm.
So a lot of their education is pretty widespread, healthcare, things like that. Again, I don't know a ton about it, but you don't hear, well, I didn't hear a lot of complaints about people saying like, I don't have access to any healthcare type of thing. But I will preface that of, I was in a situation where I worked for a global firm. The people in Argentina who work for our firm are considered to have very good jobs.
Mhm.
So I couldn't speak to like the broader population.
That's fair. Would you say that you're still in touch with people from Argentina right now, and they've been saying things have changed even more since you left?
Um, I am still in touch because again, so my job stays the same. I'm just been staying on the Buenos Aires time zone. So my days start super early, but I still
Wow.
cover Latin America.
Was
So
it
I'm
3 hours earlier or something?
so 2 hours with the time change. I got lucky.
Oh,
So it
nice.
was 3 hours. Now it's two. I know. I was like, when?
Yeah.
So I'm very much in touch with the region, and that's also fascinating too to see like Peru's pure lockdown. So I know the most about Buenos Aires, but I'm in tune to what's happening. Colombia is also fully locked down, quarantine. And then I'm in touch with my friends like socially. I think because they locked down the country so soon that most of my immediate contacts their families are safe, nobody's sick. It's just a matter of, because they can't go out like to walk or anything, I think they really are starting to feel sort of cabin fever in a way
Mm,
that we don't,
right.
because we can, even if you're just out for 10 minutes, that's 10 minutes more. And then they do also, one person per family can go to the grocery store. So it's not like, oh, three of us can go. It's like,
Right.
no,
It's not like a
dad
family
goes.
event.
Exactly. So even the people who do get to leave the house, they might be the only one. So I'm starting to hear more about that, and just the general concern. They're expressing concern for what's happening around them.
Hmm.
Like they're like, oh, it's so bad in the United States, or others who have family who are in the United States or in Brazil, or, just around, but they feel good. They still have supplies and things like that, but it's
Good.
just a matter of unknown, which the whole world is kind of in that boat. But I think because they got ahead of it, or they're trying to, um, I don't know anyone who's like been personally impacted or sick. And that was actually, there's a plug for my company. Super impressed the other day that I heard. So we have 14,000 employees worldwide. We have
Hmm.
77 offices worldwide, and apparently no one has gotten sick yet
That's
or
great.
gotten the virus. So I was like, that is super, because we've had people in China, in Italy, and everywhere. So I thought that was particularly impressive. And I think,
Well, I hope
you
it
know,
stays that way.
yeah,
Sure.
same.
Yeah. So when you landed in Chicago, I know you had told me before that your parents had dropped off food for you. Is that right?
Yes, my mom, I have the best mom. And then that's when you're like, this is why I came home.
Yeah.
So my mom was, and this was part of my reason coming in wanting to stay. I was like, wait, I'm here with this summer weather. It's 80 degrees, beautiful skies.
We
There's
were just
food on
commenting how
all.
you have a beautiful tan right before
Yeah,
starting to film.
exactly. I'm like, there's food on the shelves. Like, sure, this is escalating, but I'm feeling like this is pretty good. I'm
Right.
like, I'm going to Chicago where there's like no food, again, based on what I had heard. I'm like, there's nothing anywhere. My apartment's been empty for a month. I cleaned it out before I left.
Right.
So my mom, she really wanted me to come home, but I was being very diligent about my 14-day quarantine. So
Mhm.
like staying at home. I don't want to potentially infect anyone. And so she brought groceries from Indiana and drove it to Chicago, and like disinfected my apartment and everything before I got here. And she's like, well, she works in healthcare. So she's
Okay.
like, I've been tested. I know I don't have it. So I'm not worried about me infecting you. And I'm like, you're worried about infecting me. I'm worried about infecting you. So this is like back and forth. But so she just completely set up my entire apartment. She even put the agua con gas. I had like Pellegrino when I came home
Oh,
and flowers. I know. And she even bought
what
me
a
kombucha.
welcome home.
I know. And like my mom knows nothing about kombucha. And I was like, I didn't even know you listened to me when I talk about this. And so she's like, well, you said you didn't have it in Argentina. So,
Oh,
and those are the reasons why you come home, right? They were taking
yeah.
super great care of me, but like my mom hit it out of the park and I wasn't even home yet.
It's so nice that you had that. Like when Derek and I got home, we came back. I mean, we were only gone for a week, but we came back to a totally empty fridge, and we just ended up
Mm-hmm.
having to order Grubhub and stuff for several days until our groceries were able to make it to us.
Yeah.
So that's really nice to have that.
Well, so to that point, so I've been, like I said, in this little bubble because my mom set me up. And then today was the first time I ventured out to like the United States world. And I went to Whole Foods and I was just fascinated because, one, everything is so expensive. I've had like sticker shock from Buenos
Comparatively.
Aires. I was like,
Yeah.
what happened? Also, they've completely, I guess I will say I'm impressed with Whole Foods. They have the person there sanitizing all of the carts. They also took out half of the cash registers and now they have the self checkout. I was like,
Hmm.
oh, so, not, I've been impressed for what I've seen from the United States so far. The stocks seem, the shelves seem pretty stocked. They have like limits on some of the stuff you can buy. But then I'm trying to limit my exposure just to other people and then also to me.
Right.
So I just like bought everything and my grocery bill was insane. And then there were a couple, I could only bring what I could carry. And I was like, well, let me just run over to Trader Joe's or like I want some Malbec.
Yeah.
I like miss my
I
Argentine
miss
wine.
it. Oh.
And then some like
By the way,
dried.
everybody, Malbec is typically a wine like very famous from Argentina.
Exactly. So I was like, well, let me go get some Malbec and get some like dried fruit or something random like that. And then the line was outside down the street. And I was like, adios.
Yeah.
I'm going back to my apartment. And I'm like, but that was even kind of crazy. The night and day between Trader Joe's and Whole Foods.
Yeah.
So I said I got more of like, I bought like 8 bars of chocolate, like random stuff like that my mom rightfully so didn't think of. But I'm feeling pretty comfortable and like well stocked. I will eventually go home to Indiana once my quarantine is up.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is that, after the 14 days, are you going to go be with your parents?
Exactly. So Sunday will be 14 days.
Is your dog there too?
My dog is at home too. And my parents say like, cause they typically watch him when I travel
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, he keeps acting like he wants to go home. I think he's just very confused why he's still here. And I was like, well, at least me coming back should help. It was
Yeah.
funny. They sent me a picture of him the other day and he's maybe put on some pounds. And I was like, pobrecito. Everyone goes to the parents' house and puts on pounds, even the dog.
Yeah, grandparents spoil all the grandkids, canine or otherwise.
Yes. So to that point, if you need any supplies in the next week, my house has stuff for you.
Nice.
I'll share. But then yeah, after that
It's
should
so
be.
funny we're in the same city, but like it feels like you're so far away.
I know. It's so good to see you. I'm like,
I know,
hi.
so good.
Yes.
What was your daily routine like in Argentina before this all kind of started? I mean,
It
tell
was
me
so
like
magical.
yeah.
I loved it. No, so it was super nice. I will say, in hindsight, if you would have told me, oh, you only get to be in Argentina for a month,
Mhm.
I probably would have traveled more within Argentina. I put a lot of effort into truly like living. So my first weekend, I was in the hardware store, like buying hooks. And then I put a lot of effort into learning how to do my laundry. Like it's like laundromat style with coins, learning grocery shopping, things like that. So I will say, I feel like I acclimated pretty well. I like found a church. I joined a Bible study.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, which was great. And that was so lovely because to have like 6 people praying for you the whole time you're traveling. And then even now they check on me and stuff. And so I'm still doing my Spanish Bible study and I have all my materials and things. But
Oh.
which is nice again, and it keeps me connected. And you hear about, and because it's like the church, they're more connected into the like population in need, so I get a broader spectrum of what's happening in Argentina. But back to my living my best life, I would the weekends were just like a lot of exploring, finding coffee shops, wandering into stores. I mean, everything is super new. One day I worked, we had a holiday, so we had a Monday off. I walked 15 miles just through the whole city.
Cool.
So I actually have a list of, and I know you've been to Buenos Aires, but I have a list of like every cafe, coffee shop, restaurant I went to.
Oh man, you should put together, maybe I'll connect with you because I've been thinking about putting together a few like downloadable guides or something.
Oh yeah.
And that would be really exciting to do with you.
That would be super fun. I'm totally down. So yeah, it was just like a lot of exploring. I did work, like I said, in the office. So during the weekday, I would like wake up, maybe go for a run. I was close to Puerto Madero, so it was like beautiful place.
Yeah.
They have an ecological reserve that was really nice to go to on the weekends. So it's just like a lot of like coffee and media lunas, which is like a croissant, and would go to work. And then after work, so the
Did you have the mate?
I had the mate. I'm not a fan of the mate.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But so I would say the hours are, you get to work like 8 or 9, so very similar to here. You eat lunch around like 1 or 2, and then you have a merienda, so like a snack, if you will, maybe 5 or 5 o'clock. And then you eat dinner. I eat dinner like 10, 11 on the weekends, like mostly 11:30, 12 on, or sorry, 10, 11 on the weekdays, and then like 11:30, 12 on the weekends. So definitely a different time, like schedule. But it was nice because even if I worked to, let's say 7, you would leave work. And a lot of people work out after work, and it makes sense to me now because I'm like, what are you going to do for 5 hours before dinner? And that was, I never fully got on that schedule because I'm like a workout before work type of person. So it's super hard to like eat a steak at midnight, try to get up at 6 to go run. Like I was like, the cow is still in my stomach. It was like, I candidly struggled with that.
When Derek and I were there, he went to Puerto Madero to take photos at sunrise, and there was still people partying along the
100%. They go out to clubs. I didn't go clubbing. I will when I go back. No, I'm kidding. But they say they typically go out like 2, 3 in the morning, and then they'll stay out until 7 or so. So that was sort of, so then after I would leave work, let's say 7, I would just do like more exploring. I found a super cute, here, I have it here. It was a store by women, like it was founded by a woman. And so this is like what would you call it?
Ideas,
a suede.
Inspiraciones y notas. So ideas, inspirations, and notes.
Yes, it's just a little notebook, but it's suede. So it's like this beautiful leather thing for $12. Wow. And they had all kinds. So it was like a lot of just like that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, that's cute. And in hindsight, I was like, I should have bought 5. But they have so many things that are like handcrafted and just little stores. So most of my time, like I said, was just wandering, drinking coffees, having caramel and snacks.
You even took a workout class too, right?
Oh yes, I went boxing. I went to a couple studios.
Nice.
I'm a big fan of Shadow Box here and Rumble in the United States, but I went to something called Brooklyn Fit Boxing, which was like boxing and kicking. It was a little bit interesting. So I tried that. And then they have something called Hit Box, which is probably more similar to like our traditional Shadow Box or Rumble. But that was also fascinating. Their classes are $7.
That's amazing.
And I was like, I could go every single day. And that's like one class in the US. So,
did they have memberships too, like they do often here?
They didn't have like unlimited memberships. They would do like 10 classes at a time, if you will. But like here, a lot of studios are, you can come unlimited for, $150 a month or whatever it is. I didn't see anything like that. It was still a lot by class. But the other thing I will mention is they have wonderful gelato. So I spent a lot of my time eating gelato.
Is that the Italian influence, do you think, on the culture?
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing.
So yeah, so that was really just my routine. I was just trying to learn a lot about the culture and the people. I bought some books in Spanish. I That's one of my favorite things about Buenos Aires is the amount of bookstores that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And just they still very much value the arts and like the theater and literature and things like that. So it's just such a well cultured, well rounded city. It's definitely probably one of my favorite in the world. So very much hoping I get to go back.
I'm hoping
Um,
that a lot of people who watch this channel and are in this community have either been there already or definitely have it
mhm,
on their bucket lists, because Buenos Aires is such a phenomenal experience.
and the people are wonderful, and it's the perfect blend for me. A little bit of my background because I studied in Mexico when we were in
Hmm.
college, and then I also studied in Spain.
Right.
So my heritage is Mexican and Puerto Rican.
Mhm.
But having the like influence of studying in Spain, if you put me in Buenos Aires, I feel like it's the perfect mix of everything because you get that like Latin passion culture, but then some of the influences of like Spain and Europe, and it's just kind of this like whole wonderful mixture. And then they have their
Yeah.
own flair of their tango and their mate. And so I always say Buenos Aires is just like a very spicy city. Like there's just like this like energy to it, and every day it
And
just
it's a big mix of a lot of
mm-hmm.
different things, a lot of
It's
different,
very charming. Like
yeah.
you just walk. There's a lot of times you walk around, and you're like, "Is this my life right now?" Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love Chicago too. This has been
Yeah.
home my whole life, and I will always have a special place in my heart. But if you're going to have to spend some extended time abroad, Buenos Aires is certainly the best place to be.
So one of the questions that I've been asking people, but I don't know if it'd probably be different for you. So I've been asking, once this crisis, calms and we can safely travel again, do you have any places that you want to go more urgently? And for you, I'm sure you just want to go back and finish your
Mm-hmm.
stay. Is there anything else that, like, anywhere else you'd want to go?
No, I really think, I mean, of course, like I have been wanting to do not necessarily South Africa, but like Southern Africa, a safari there, like through Namibia,
Ah,
Zimbabwe,
yeah.
um, Botswana, and then do Cape Town. So I have that whole planned. And so there's certainly other places in the world that I want to go. I have a short list, but because I was mentally going to be there for a year, I
Mhm.
had really focused my immediate travel plans on South America. I really wanted to pop over to the Galapagos. I
Yeah.
wanted to go to Bolivia, but mostly I really wanted to just do Argentina. So Mendoza, Iguazu, Tierra del Fuego. I
Mhm.
really wanted to, because my detail was supposed to be up in November. So I was going to pop over to Antarctica, which I still technically could, and do
Yeah.
like a week cruise or something down there. Right. So it's like all my travel plans were set. I was actually supposed to be in Mendoza last week.
Uh,
That clearly got canceled. But
So
I
that
was
Malbec
planning.
wine was just like some sort of
I
silly
know.
consolation prize for you.
So for all intents and purposes, my joke is like it's still Buenos Aires in my house. I've been eating dinner at 10. I don't have any Malbec, but I do have other wines. So the other day I made a paella, which is very Spanish, but it was
Mhm.
just like 9:30 at night, making my paella, drinking my wine. I also one other thing I love about Buenos Aires is their love for polo.
Oh,
So I've
really?
become a polo convert. You can subscribe to the Buenos Aires Polo channel.
Oh,
So I
cool.
literally like right, people are streaming basketball games and stuff. I'm like still with my wine and my Argentine polo, and
Are they still playing it now?
so they're not. So
Okay.
polo season is like canceled,
Yeah.
but they have like just tons of film, or what we call like content, if you will, from years past. So I watched I have been to a polo game live on one of my prior trips. But so I watched like all the finals. My favorite team is La Dolfina. Like I'm sitting here yelling at the TV. So like I said, in my house, it feels very much like Buenos Aires, which is kind of nice. But
That's awesome.
yeah. So that's my immediate travel plans, is really just to go back.
Well, I also need to recommend shameless plug for Bariloche, Argentina. I loved it
Oh,
there
yes.
too. So when you
That's
go back,
another.
you'll have to add that to the list.
Yeah, I want to do a solid like 2 weeks in Patagonia just to
And Bariloche is
really.
like I think it's called the gateway to Patagonia. So you could
hmm
fly there and then like start driving south.
You could come for round two.
I would
You
love
can.
it, literally. Sign me up. Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I wanted to ask one last
Of
question.
course.
So, is there any um, social media, anything that you want to point people to, whether it's yours or something about Argentina that if folks want to know more, they can go to?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one full disclosure, I'm not very cool on social media. So, you will all see 3 pictures if you follow me. But one of my favorite accounts that I got a lot of like really hidden gems while I was down there. For example, did you know there was a Harrods in Buenos Aires?
No.
Yes, apparently in like from 1914 to 1920, there was a Harrods right down on like Calle Florida, which is
Yeah.
like their main,
A
almost like
big
their
road.
Times Square type of thing.
Hmm.
So I saw it on this Instagram account and I was like, that's so crazy. And then one day I was walking around and I saw this old like busted warehouse and I was like, wait a second, that's Harrods. So then I like double checked the account and then I found a plaque and it's like a protected historical site now. But so this is just a wonderful account for like finding things like that. But the handle is just Buenos Aires .ar.
Okay. And Buenos Aires is one word and then
Mm-hmm.
.ar. All right. And it's
So I was
Instagram.
looking on my
Okay,
Instagram
Instagram account. So
and
I'll put the account right there so you guys can see how it's spelled.
And the other thing that's cool about that is this individual, like I think this is his full-time job. He just goes about sharing travel tips and cultural and history and things like that. And so he's still posting even though they're in quarantine. So
Okay.
that's been fascinating to see. Just they have like the 8 p.m. clap for the medical workers and things like that. So you can get a feel for things to do in Buenos Aires as well as how things are progressing
Yeah,
down there.
stay up to date.
And then here's,
Cool.
I don't know if you guys are interested in this as well, but this is the Polo Association.
Oh man, I'll put it down here too.
So I'll give you that one. And this is just like, you need an escape of like pictures of estancias and being in Las Pampas and all the horses. It really is just beautiful how much they love their outdoors and they love their animals. So
Oh, that's
those are my
awesome.
2 suggestions.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It was awesome to live vicariously through you about Argentina and also hear about your story getting back.
Yeah.
Man, you're going to have that story to tell for a very long time, that's for sure.
Yeah. And thanks so much for listening. Sorry, I know I feel like I just let out a whole bunch of information.
Oh,
This is
no.
this is what happens when you're in quarantine and you have no one to talk to.
That's probably why anybody who's still watching is still watching.
Yes, but I'm here. If any questions, let's definitely connect on maybe putting a guidebook or something. That'd be super fun.
That would be terrific. And comment below too if you have any questions for Clarissa. And if you liked this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up below and feel free to subscribe for more interviews to come. Thanks everybody for watching. Happy travels.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
Bye. Ciao, ciao.
Hey travelers, don't forget to subscribe and let's hang out more. Here are some links to other helpful travel videos on my channel and press that notification bell so you don't miss any new and awesome travel videos to come.